I'm Ravi Mathur. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of GS1 India, located at New Delhi. Spurious drugs has been a major problem across the world, and from an India perspective, because we are one of the largest manufacturers and exporters of pharmaceutical drugs, this has an added importance. So we have to make sure that whatever goes out from this country is perceived as being of high quality, genuine and authentic. And from a crisis which originated way back in the year 2010, there were some medicines which were presumably supplied out of India, detected in Africa, which showed up as counterfeit drugs. And from the markings, it appeared as if they had originated out of India. So that obviously was of huge concern to both the regulator in India, the government bodies, as well as the pharmaceutical industry at large. And this is what got them to working on looking at what was happening across the world in terms of being able to detect spurious drugs and being able to prevent its distribution. And that led to looking at how technology could help in enabling this counterfeit detection and authentication of medicines. And some great steps were taken by the Ministry of Commerce through DGFT at that point of time, through the notification which they issued out asking all exporters to fall in line with the requirement for barcoding of all medicines, capturing some minimum attributes like expiry dates, batch numbers, etc. And for that medicine in its journey to be scanned by the different players in the supply chain, such that a track and trace could be built right across. I understand that some studies have been done on a global basis. They've also been done by some of the chambers of commerce in India, and there are some varying figures which range from anything from 14% to 20% as the incidence of spurious drugs in global markets. So one of our major roles is in being able to support the government of India and the pharmaceutical industry in providing confidence to consumers, regulators and buyers at large worldwide that what comes out of India is genuine medicines, and there is a track and trace which is available right from the source. So should any case of counterfeit be detected, there is an ability for the system to be able to trace it back to its origin, and if there is any compromise which has happened in the supply chain, to really be able to pinpoint and get to the root cause analysis. We operate across 25 industry verticals with a special focus on retail and healthcare. Particularly in healthcare, we are closely engaged in ways by which patient safety can be enhanced through correct identification of medicines, through correct dosage, through expiration management, through product recalls, spurious drugs and counterfeit detection, etc. One of the problems today is in being able to identify medicines uniquely, and this is important because you have the same brand or the same medicine name but in different potencies, and unless you have a unique way of being able to identify each of those medicines, there is a problem in terms of its dispensation to patients and in its distribution across hospitals. So one of the key things, and I would say a starting point and really a foundation to building patient safety, is the proper identification of medicines, of medical devices, and just about everything used in hospital supplies. Medical devices is a critical area across the world, and one of the issues which they are grappling with worldwide is in unique identification of medical devices. So globally, there is a lot of work which is happening by the regulators, and within India, work needs to happen as well, and it should be harmonized with the identification standards for medical devices which are emerging in the rest of the world. Besides the identification of the medical devices, which needs to follow the practices being used all over the world, more so because we are actually a very major importer of medical devices in the country. So we need to align ourselves with the standards being used across the world. And the other area related to medical devices is in building national repositories of medical devices which are used in the country by hospitals. We need to be able to track the history of those medical devices right through their lifespan and be able to know on, for example, which patient or which particular beneficiary received which medical device, so that it would be very convenient from the perspective of rendering care for the entire duration of that implant or medical device within a patient. A unique identification of hospitals is important because there have been instances in the past where there have been a number of mediclaims filed seemingly from hospitals which did not physically even exist. There's also been a problem where hospitals under different names have actually been operating, and there is no way to know it's actually the same hospital. And I think both from a consumer and a beneficiary and a patient perspective, this is important. It's also very important from the perspective of the insurance companies, because they are the ones who are incurring the expenses in terms of processing mediclaims. So a project which was started a few years ago involved providing a unique identity to private hospitals in the country, and our role has been in providing that identity through the use of GS1 standards, which is the way hospitals get identified across the world. So a national repository has got set up of some 17,000 plus hospitals in the country. They are uniquely identified using these standards, and as consumers and as patients, we have the ability through the net to go into searching such hospitals, which are also geotagged, so we even know their physical location, and then we can get into looking at each of the specialities and the treatment costs offered by each of the hospitals. So I think it's a big enabler from us as a consumer perspective, and very importantly from insurance companies who in the past have actually been losing a lot of money due to false mediclaims which have been filed. In response to the DGFT notification in 2011, the Government of India through NIC set up a national portal which is called the DAVA portal. It stands for Drug Authentication and Verification Application, and pharmaceutical exporters are required to upload their daily production data into it, and which then can be accessed across the world by anyone in terms of a track and trace, and to know where a particular medicine from which batch and on which day it has originated from. I think the initial challenge was more in terms of a mindset, where it was perceived as something which is bringing about greater transparency and possibly accountability. There were some apprehensions in the beginning in terms of costs as well, but those have been addressed. And even in terms of transparency, etc., I think largely the concerns were unfounded. So those were some of the challenges, and some related to implementation challenges as well. But I think over a period of time they've got effectively addressed.